I want to address a few things about Harley-Davidson accusations of wokeness just off the cuff. I kind of skim around these videos. I usually just look for videos that actually tell me how to do something or make myself better versus the garbage. But yeah, I saw some stuff about Harley-Davidson. They're talking about, they were producing a new Sportster called the Stormbreaker, and the Chinese took it over. And I personally thought, that's not so bad. You know why? Because if they're producing the same Evo Sportster, that means that Evo Sportster is going to be around for how many more years that they produce it, because a lot of the parts are the same. That my 89 and 91 Sportster would be good to go. Now, as far as wokeness, you look at this picture. This was Dykes on Bikes. I don't know when this was, but this was a long time ago before they had the problem with Budweiser and John Deere and Tractor Supply and all that. But it wasn't being pushed by the corporation. See, Harley-Davidson is people's bike. You do whatever you want. I'm not pushing any kind of anything here, any kind of, whatever you do, you deal with the consequences of what you do and everything. I'm not sure if this is the picture of the dude or whatever. I can't even tell, to tell you the truth. Doesn't look like an obvious linebacker. Well, this picture here, I think, oh no, that's a YouTuber. That's who that is. This is the picture right here. That's a. Sometimes this was the one that was the dude that was on Dylan Mulvaney, whatever her name was, right? On Bud. And personally, I don't drink beer, but I look at it like this. These guys, they're not just up in an ivory tower where they are immune and totally disconnected from what's going on in the real world. They're not stupid. These are very, very, very smart people. What they're doing is they're actually trying to destroy things that were built up by basically European heritage people. Bud Light, Milwaukee, Harley-Davidson, Tractor Supply. That represents John Deere Tractor. That represents all, European heritage mainly. White, blue-collar, hard-working individuals. And you know what the attack is? It's on them. And you know where it's coming from, obviously. And I'm going to allude to that. And I'll give you some research materials, too, in this video. Because it's a book on Amazon that it's been out a long time now. I'm surprised they did not. It's not political. It just explains a lot of facts about how the German economy turned itself around in the 1930s and everything. And with the guy who had shaved the ends of his mustache off because he couldn't wear his gas mask with the full mustache on. That's why he did it. That's why, anyway, that's not a styling cue. That was a practicality thing. But explains a lot, what really, really, really happened, versus the myths. So you got to read a book, though. You can't watch a video. And if I produced a video on it about the book, they probably wouldn't even allow it. So anyway, this guy I was watching, and I was watching Professional Monkey, and I was watching some other video. I usually watch some videos on, what the hell was it? The Harley-Davidson stuff. This guy pretty much gets it, but, maybe he does get it fully, but he can't say on here. But, if you want to look at what I respect the most, the veterans I respect, was the guys on the other side of the aisle in Europe who fought against the communists. And I pay homage to them all the time, unabashedly. I don't care. So anyway, but if you want to read a book that explains, because I'm going to delve with one thing before I get into this book. It's easy to read too, which is cool. One thing I'm going to get into, the thing, even this guy, he's a normal dude. You can see, I think, I got it cut off. He's got all likes underneath here, including me. And, you can tell which ones are, he's got a valid point, and Professional Monkey's got a valid point. There's a lot of garbage on YouTube. As a matter of fact, when I see a YouTube video bashing Harley-Davidson and it's an AI video, I immediately say, do not recommend this channel. I don't even want to hear this garbage. They're pushing all these feeds into my stuff, and they're not from real people. I hate AI videos. I totally hate them. I don't watch any of that garbage. I want to hear real people. This is supposed to be YouTube, not corporate tube, which they ruined it too. But just to address, about money and all this crap. Okay, the Harley CEOs are all about money, the stockholders. Well, so is everybody else. So Suzuki, so is Yamaha, Honda, BMW, Ducati, Royal Enfield. They're all about that, and that's the poison. So the poison is basically global. So what's the answer to the poison? Well, basically, this book. I'm not going to even show the title here, but one of the guys in here that's reviewing it, he really went into a lot of gobbledygook here about, he says the book is simply mind blowing. The author begins his survey of Germany by going all the way back to the first century AD. He describes, and it really is. It tells in a practical way, how communism is totally different from what the Germans were doing. Actually, the communism was the elite that was dehumanizing the guys that are working really hard to keep them up. Whereas the Germans basically made it like one big community. Everybody's working and helping each other out. As long as you keep your feet moving, basically. Everybody keep working. If you got something, keep busy, keep doing things, keep helping other people out. They help you out in return. That's what that socialism word actually is supposed to mean. It's supposed to mean like a community helping each other out without a directive, sapping all the labor energies out of you. Now, the problem is, in reality, globally, what we got is we got two ends of communism, basically. It's like we got communism, and like I know the Russians supposedly weaned themselves off of communism. BS. I don't think so. I mean, I looked at Major Anatoly Golitsyn's book. It's a long-range strategy, and it's not the Russians per se. The Russians are great people, man. They're welcome here. Same with the white South Africans and all that. But the thing is that they have basically, that's probably a ploy too. There's communism going on, undercurrents even in the United States. But the point is, like George Carlin, I think the comedian, says, you got the owners. Whether they call themselves communists or they call themselves capitalist CEOs or whatever, they're the owners. And sorry, this is a YouTube chick, I think. So I was confusing her with Dylan Mulvaney. Maybe it ain't Dylan Mulvaney. I don't even know. But anyway, they're not, when they did all this woke stuff, they didn't do this because they were just trying to push a politically correct agenda or whatever you want to call it, whatever. They were doing that to destroy, that was a direct attack on white European heritage. All the way. That's what it is. And even if it's not Christian European heritage, it's heathen heritage. Even the heathens were against this stuff. The pagans were against this stuff. Pretty much everywhere you go, man, they're against this kind of stuff, man. And actually, the pagans were probably more tolerant of this type of stuff. But, the point is, it's a foreign element that is an elite core worldwide, and all their people below them that are basically kissing their butts and playing the game and keeping the structure going is the problem. And actually, this book here, pretty much, I tell you right here, this is it, by Richard Tidor. That's the guy. Now, this book has been, I bought it years ago, and I read it. I read a bunch of books on this type of stuff, and actually got a bunch of articles that go against the mainstream, but they're highly accurate, the information I got. It's like what you leave out. It's almost like the AI videos on YouTube. You can make anybody say anything, right? And then they're going to do it with this too. But this is an excellent book, and I don't know, not much. I'm not selling it, but I'll recommend it to you because if it's on Amazon, and it's been on Amazon for all these years, I don't see why they would get me in trouble for freaking saying this on YouTube, because Amazon says it's okay, right? So, but that'll explain to you a lot, because this guy ain't gonna say nothing on here. I might, but I'm stupid. San Mateo, California, man, they're a work of art over there. That's all I got to tell you. But it's not like all this stuff with the money angle, where it's like totally money focused. Like they say, like money's not the root of all evil. It's like the love of money's the root of all evil. They say that, right? That's a truism. It's like that's what you got going on. You got the money people that are pure money people. They don't even get into product at all. And Eventually, even though you got somebody built something up, or a bunch of people built stuff up, or families built up stuff, and got workers that built up stuff, it takes one idiot to get in there and screw it all up. And they're not idiots. They're your enemy. They're doing this on purpose because the white Europeans are totally on a chopping block. If you look back in 1900, the white European types were 30% of the global population. Now they're 6%. And if you look at every freaking single commercial out there, which you know who puts them out, you know what they do. They always show everything designed to totally destroy, eliminate whatever remains of the whites. And that's because the ones that are doing it are totally evil. But, I'm like, it's a motorcycle. It's not a political thing, in my opinion. It's a motorcycle. As a matter of fact, I'll say this. I got into motorcycles because I like bicycling so much. I was winding up putting on 3,000 miles a year on a bicycle. That's how much I like to ride the bicycle. I just love the two wheels, man. And it was a bike that was had better components on it to handle that kind of, use. Because if you just get a regular bicycle out of Walmart or something, it ain't going to handle that kind of stuff unless you it still wouldn't handle, even if you maintained the crap out of it, you greased all the bearings and stuff. But it was like a regular, decent quality bicycle for that kind of mileage per year. And I was riding, and to put 3,000 miles on, even 3,000 miles on a motorcycle a year is a lot for some people. But to put 3,000 miles on in a year in a bicycle, that's a lot of hours of riding. So I'd be on that thing like mega hours. I mean, I'd be on there like 12 hours in a day, and I'd be riding way over 100 miles and stuff. And, I just love being on the two wheels. So that's how I got into it. I didn't get into it from all the, the Harley-Davidson biker culture stuff. I just like two wheels. So I don't really care what people ride. But I could tell you how I think of Harley-Davidson, and maybe this is only my thinking, and at least if you go back with the old school Harley-Davidson, I think of it as Volks Harley, the people's bike, like the Volkswagen. It's an air-cooled, simple bike. The hard thing about the motorcycle basically is the splitting the cases and balancing the flywheels and all that garbage. That I don't know how to do, but pretty much everything else I could do on a bike. And I'm like, that is why it's a great motorcycle. And I personally hate the new ones too because it's the electronics. I don't think the rest of this stuff on the bikes. The M8 motor is probably really, really, really good motor. But they showed this guy on one of the channels. I forgot who. Oh, it was the guy with, what the hell was that? Backyard. What the hell was it? Shade Tree Surgeon. That's what it was. Shade Tree, not Backyard. Shade Tree. I was thinking Shade Tree Mechanics, Backyard Mechanic. Shade Tree Surgeon. He showed where they put an M8 with all the electronic gobbledygook on it. They put a Morris Magneto, and they put an S&S G carb, the big one, on it, and it ran fine. And, you can't beat that, man. I mean, there you go. You got rid of all electronic gobbledygook for two outstanding American parts. So, you can always make them back the simple way, too. But do get this book. You'd be surprised, man. I mean, I read a lot of stuff. Actually, I read way more into this than, this book. But this book pretty much covers it. One thing I got out of this book, though, too, was like one thing, sample, I'll say. I don't think it mentions it in here. But it was observed by the leader that, why should a guy in a factory work extra hard for some people sitting in a comfy office someplace? Why? What incentive do they have? So what they did in Germany was they made sure they didn't destroy or confiscate any capital. They made sure that when a company made a lot of profits, it went back into like better working conditions, vacations, and better safety, more pay, all this kind of stuff. It went into that stuff. And see, that's where Harley-Davidson was violating that rule because that CEO got like a $50 million stock bonus or something one year, which was like twice of what Ford CEO got, and he was in a much smaller company, right? But here they said that Germany purchasing power was not the gold standard, but the labor standard. But all this assumed you gotta have a population that works hard, and usually the white Europeans are the hardest working ones. But I I don't know what these guys, these elitist, hateful people want to do to destroy us, because I can't see what they're going to have after that. Nothing. But, let them paint themselves in a corner and the hell with them. But I want people to be more aware of, like, the overall thing that's going on here, because it ain't going to stop. And if you don't see where it's coming from, you're lost. You're looking at, like in here, I think they said, where is it? Right here, Robbie Starbuck. I think that's somebody, whatever the hell it is. How to make the wokeness and how to ruin the company. It's not the one guy you see. There's a game going on. They want us all. They want that 30% in 1900 to 6% in 2025. They want it down to nothing. That's the game. That's the game. Anyway, and that's what's going on with Harley-Davidson, Budweiser, and everything. Matter of fact, you'd probably be better off making mead instead of drinking this stuff. But that's a separate thing. But just see the big picture. And, you really can't illuminate the big picture on here because, when you're showing that, it's like they own the platform, too. So what are you going to do?